So, the Fred Hampton Institute has outed themselves as liberal Zionists. Now, why might I say this? Check it out. November 25, 2023, what would a just peace in Palestine look like? So this is by Chris Richards. And he wants to ask the question where Zionist settlers will go when Palestine's liberated. Okay. Why are we even asking this question in the first place? So, this brings us to the headline. What does a just peace look like? It also brings us to the question of the meme and the settler movement. Where do Zionist settlers go? And only Palestinians can answer the first question. Here's what Chris Richards said. Only Palestinians can answer the first question. I'm a white American, which makes me a settler myself. I can't tell Palestinians what a just peace looks like in Palestine. Any more than I can tell the MODOK what a just peace looks like with the U.S. government would really look like. Why are we arguing for a just peace instead of for full liberation? This is craziness. Again, Fred Hampton Institute is liberal Zionist and Chris Richards is a liberal Zionist. Okay? That's why I support the Land Back movement and believe the U.S. should be legally forced to honor its treaties with indigenous nations. That's not what land back means. Land back means the abolition of the U.S. government. Land back means the indigenous nations, the Athabascans, the Salish, the Kalapuya, those guys, the Ohlone, they govern their own land. Right? It means land back means and includes the abolition of the United States, the abolition of the settler colony. That's what land back means. It's not just honoring treaties, just like Palestinian liberation's not just like, oh, equal rights. No, Palestinian liberation, and again, I'm part Palestinian, it means from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Palestinian liberation is the destruction of the Zionist entity, the abolition of the Zionist entity. Just like Athabascan liberation, or Salish liberation, or Ohlone liberation, is the abolition of the U.S. government. It's not a just peace. What is this just peace crap? What is this just peace crap? You wouldn't ask Iraqis for a just peace with the U.S. government. You wouldn't ask Yemenis with a just peace with the Saudis. You wouldn't ask black South Africans for a just peace with the Afrikaans settlers. You wouldn't do that now, would you? Although I think he might with South Africa because he is a liberal Zionist. Okay? So we should reject the arrogance that might lead us to suggest or force a solution to the question of Palestinian liberation. Even though you're kind of doing this in this article. We should instead support Palestinians in their struggle against the settler movement. Only Palestinians can determine what a just peace would look like and what they're willing to acquiesce short of from the river to the sea. If they're not, only they can make that decision. We should still support them. So this man wants us Palestinians, and again, I'm part Palestinian. This man wants us Palestinians to give up our liberation. This is what his words are. Only Palestinians can determine what a just peace would look like and what they're willing to acquiesce short of from the river to the sea. If they're not, only they can make that decision. We should still support them. This is craziness. This is craziness. Why would we acquiesce anything short of from the river to the sea? Look, I am part Palestinian. I'm about 7% Palestinian. 8% of my ancestry is Lebanese, 7% of my ancestry is Palestinian. I'm descended mostly from Palestinian Druze, and if you know the history, it would make sense, right? Because the Crusaders, a lot of the Crusaders mixed with Palestinian Druze. That was my case and my maternal grandma's case. On my maternal grandma's side. So I'm descended from Palestinian Druze primarily. That's why Daliat al-Carmel is highlighted on my Shared Modern Origins report. Because Daliat al-Carmel is a Druze town in occupied 1948 Palestine. Now, many of the Druze have sold out to the Zionist entity, and it's something that I'm really working to combat because I have a lot of Palestinian Druze ancestry in my background. But why would I acquiesce anything short of from the river to the sea? Full liberation is what we need. So then, Chris, once again, restorative justice is not injustice. Anything short of from the river to the sea is liberal Zionism. Chris Richards needs to understand that. The Fred Hampton Institute needs to understand that. Why are you platforming this guy, Fred Hampton Institute? Why are you platforming this liberal Zionist? And so here he goes on. The settler movement's question remains, where do the Zionist Jews go? The Zionist settlers. Only the Zionist settlers can answer that, and their answer has no authority to determine whether or not Palestinians should acquiesce anything less than their full liberation. Zionist settlers must be arrested and deported immediately after liberation. I will go through the Haifa Governorate. I will arrest all of the settlers in the Haifa Governorate, and I will deport them. Okay? That's what I will do. I will go through the entire Haifa Governorate and start deporting Zionist settlers. I will go to Majd al-Shams. I will go to Ain Khanieh. I will go to, Majd al-Krum. I will go all through the northern part of Palestine. I'll go down to the central part of Palestine, Talid and Al-Ramla, Yibna, and I will arrest and I'll deport Zionist settlers. Am I clear? So, again, Chris Richards, again, runs cover for settler colonialism. Most white Rhodesians chose to go to the UK, Australia, South Africa, or Latin America when the Bush War ended, and Rhodesia became Zimbabwe. Most white Kenyans stayed in Kenya after independence. At one point, the black Kenyan government made white man Richard Leakey the cabinet secretary and head of the civil service. Most white South Africans remained in South Africa after the legal end of apartheid and the institution of formal legality and legal equality and liberal democracy within the South African state. This is cringe. Again, Chris Richards is shilling for settler colonialism in South Africa. Settler colonialism still exists in South Africa. There are still white settlers, such as Dricus du Plessis, in South Africa. Dricus du Plessis is a French Huguenot. His family's from they're not. They're from Haute-de-France, right? Or Pays de Calais. They're from northwestern France, close to the border with Belgium. They're from an Huguenot background. Again, I'm 20% French as well, so I think I kind of know French last names and where they come from, right? So, again, this man, Chris Richards, is shilling for white settlers in South Africa. Legal equality and liberal democracy? What kind of BS is that? No, full liberation includes that the settlers have to go back to their countries of origin. The settlers in South Africa are still stealing land from black South Africans, right? And so he says, so he goes, so this is a really cringe point, and I don't know why the Fred Hampton Institute even platformed this man. So far too many Zionist settlers will choose to fight for the Zionist entity, at least in the near future. What do they do when the Palestinian struggle is won? Is up to them. No, it's not. It's really, really not. Why are you giving Zionist settlers authority over who controls Palestine, Chris Richard? The Zionist settlers, when Palestine is liberated, Zionist settlers will be arrested and deported. And I will probably be over there deporting them. If they commit crimes against Palestine that make them unwelcome, whose responsibility is it? Why is Chris Richard being platformed by the Fred Hampton Institute in the first place? And why is he shilling for Zionist settlers and settler colonialism? This is cringe. This is cringe. So this is one example. This is one example. And here's another example. And this is by Dylan Jones. So again, I don't know what date it's from, but Dylan Jones, who again is another liberal Zionist. So, and this called the history behind the so-called Zionist versus Hamas war. And so it starts where we start makes a big difference. We start with the narrative on October 7, when the Palestinian resistance launched rockets into occupied 1948 Palestine. First of all, why is he normalizing the Zionist entity? This is Zionist normalization. So again, first off, he talks about normalizing the Zionist entity. And then he goes on to continue. First, I'd like to acknowledge that there is no doubt important Jewish cultural and spiritual ties to Palestine. Again, this is normalization of Zionism. Literally the normalization of Zionism. And indeed, the Zionist entity was, before the Zionist entity was founded, there were many Jews living peacefully alongside Muslims and Christians in Palestine. The Yeshuv? Are we talking about the Yeshuv? The Yeshuv was not peaceful. These Zionists were foreign terrorist invaders. Are you kidding me? Why is he presenting this falsehood of the Yeshuv being a peaceful entity when the Yeshuv was violent and ethnically cleansed a lot of Palestinian villages and a lot of Palestinian lands? This is craziness. Why is the Fred Hampton Institute platforming Zionists? Palestinians have lived there since time immemorial, with genetic ties going back to the Canaanites. That is a fact. My family in Palestine has been there literally since the beginning of time. They have social, cultural, and spiritual ties to the land. In this way, Palestinians are indigenous to the land. Our genetics are from the land. Our genetics are from Palestine. 7% of my genetics are from Palestine. 15%, broadly speaking, are from the Balad Hashem region. 7% of my genetics are from Palestine. I am genetically connected to Palestine. Just like I'm genetically connected to Lebanon. Just like I'm genetically connected to Yemen, Oman, Saudi, the UAE, Qatar, right? I'm genetically connected to Iraq. I'm genetically connected to France. I'm genetically connected to the Welsh borderlands of England in northern Somerset County, which is where my paternal lineage originated, in Somerset County, right? It's genetics, dickhead. It's about genetics. What land are you genetically connected to? Palestinians have lived there since time immemorial, with genetic ties going back to Canaanites. They have social, genetic, word about genetic, cultural, and spiritual ties to land, and genetic ties. It's about genetics, dickhead. In this way, Palestinians are indigenous to the land. This is to say that non-Palestinian Jews are not also indigenous to Palestine, a question which I will show has absolutely no bearing on the current situation. Why did you even mention that? Why are you even promoting these Zionist myths? Again, it's another Zionist propaganda talking point that Dylan Jones is promoting. Why is the Fred Hampton Institute promoting Zionists such as Dylan Jones, these academic Zionist grifters? This is craziness. So here he goes further. Among Zionist goals are creating a safe space for Jewish people and creating a relationship with an important spiritual place to Jewish people living around the world. So again, he tries to justify settler colonialism. That's what he's trying to do. That's what Dylan Jones, the liberal Zionist, is trying to do, is trying to justify settler colonialism. Okay? You got to read between the lines here, and it doesn't take a smart person to do it. Establishing the theocratic settler colonial ethno-state erases Palestinian society. The presence of settlers in Palestine erases Palestinian society. Therefore, the dismantling of Zionism is the only truly just and safe path for Palestinians and Jews. Why are we equating the oppressed and the oppressor? Why are you mentioning the oppressed and the oppressor in the same sentence? These Jews are settlers. These Jews are foreign terrorist invaders. And when he says an indigenous person from a given area can also act as a colonizer or settler under the conditions of a settler colonial state, dickhead, the Zionist settlers are not indigenous to Palestine. You dumbass. Ashkenazi Jews cluster most closely with Italians. Okay? Genetically, they cluster most closely with Italians. And Moroccan Jews are mostly of Spanish descent. Tunisian Jews, Spanish descent. Yemeni Jews, Yemeni descent. Iraqi Jews, Iraqi descent. Syrian Jews, Syrian descent. And actually they closely cluster with Lebanese a little bit. What are you talking about? You're either a settler or you're not. You're either indigenous or you're not. There's no weird gray area in this. Again, Dylan Jones is a liberal Zionist. Dylan Jones is trying to justify settler colonialism. So, this is cringe. If the Palestinian stops its resistance, the Zionist entity will only continue its occupation, annexing more land, extrajudicially imposing Palestinians, including children, as read as taking hostages, and attacking Gaza. This characterizes life under the boot of the Zionist entity since it was founded. This does not advocate violent resistance as the only option, but points out that the root of all violence clearly rests with the settler colonial state of the Zionist entity. Are you kidding me? This guy is trying to vilify armed resistance. This guy's trying to vilify armed resistance by Palestine. And this is cringe. Why is Dylan Jones, it's from December 27, 2023. Why is Dylan Jones shilling for the Zionists. This is craziness. Free Palestine is not a cry for retribution. It does not advocate violence against the Zionist settlers. So, again, Zionist settlers are in Palestine illegally. They're foreign terrorist invaders. They're there illegally. Free Palestine is from the river to the sea, okay? And armed resistance is the only way to liberation. So why is the Fred Hampton Institute platforming liberal Zionists? Free Palestine means, so here's what he thinks Free Palestine means. Free Palestine means dismantling the social and political project of Zionism and moving toward liberation for everyone. That sounds like all lives matter to me. Why are you saying liberation for everyone instead of liberation for Palestine? Again, Dylan Jones is a liberal Zionist. Why is the Fred Hampton Institute platforming liberal Zionists? I believe most people, what he says. I believe most people have wondered what they would have done during the Nazi Holocaust when Nazi Germany slaughtered millions of Jews, Romani, Sintis, and people with disabilities and others. I say emphatically, you do not have to wonder what you have done. What you have done is what you're doing right now for Palestinians in Zionist death camps. Attend and or uplift rallies for a permanent ceasefire. What would a permanent ceasefire do? A permanent ceasefire would disarm the Palestinian resistance. A permanent ceasefire is Zionist. Vigils, assembly meetings, sit-ins, and shutdowns. Again, why is the Fred Hampton Institute platforming Zionism? This is crazy. This is craziness. Why is Fred Hampton Institute platforming Zionism? Bismillah. What are you doing? Like, seriously. And this is from December 4, 2023, by Ben Becker. Ties to republished from Liberation News. So this is from liberal Zionist China Benders at PSL. Why is the Fred Hampton Institute platforming Zionists? Why are you platforming China Benders and Zionists? At least, I mean, at the bare minimum, he calls out Naomi Klein and Michelle Goldberg. But that's not even that much, you know? PSL is a liberal Zionist organization. They show for China. And then you got Kenny Orphan. Kenny Orphan. At least he's not shilling for JVP. Eric Jacobson. Who is this Eric Jacobson guy? He's calling out the deep state and the security state, which is good. And why are you shilling? But why is he shilling for liberal Zionist Jews in Berlin? Jewish Berliners against Middle Eastern violence? How do we know these people are not liberal Zionists? And I will do my research. And why is he shilling for Meir Baruch, or Baruchin, or whatever the frick his name is? Meir Baruchin is a Zionist settler. What are you doing shilling for Zionist settlers? And running cover for Zionist settlers? This is craziness, and it demonstrates to us that the Fred Hampton Institute is full of liberal Zionists. And this is by Marcel Cartier. Germany has a historic debt to the Palestinian people, which I agree. I agree with the title. And it's great to see him expose Bernie Sanders. So why are we platforming liberal Zionist Macklemore, Mohammed Al-Kurd, he's a pretty good record. Why are we promoting liberal Zionist Macklemore, who shills for JVP, and if not now, why are we platforming Noura Erakat, whose uncle Saib Erakat was part of Fatah and was a Zionist normalizer? And again, Noura Erakat is a liberal Zionist, counterinsurgent, and opportunist. What is going on with the Fred Hampton Institute? And now what do these people say about China? What? So this is Ajit Singh, and Ajit is a Pajit. And so he's saying China's rise threatens U.S. imperialism, not American people. But he doesn't even address China's collaboration with the Zionist entity. This man is just shilling for Zionist China. Again, China's the second largest trading partner of the Zionist entity. China is the largest source of imports into the Zionist entity. So why is this man shilling for Zionist China? And why are they platforming Ajit the Pajit Singh? Now you got imperialist propaganda, cold nuclear war with China. Matthew Dolezal, any relation to Rachel Dolezal? Again, shills for Zionist China. Shills for liberal Zionist Pepe Escobar. China is the second largest trading partner of the Zionist entity. And the largest source of imports into the Zionist entity is from China. The Leslie Chow Collective. September 29, 2020. Why is, for the Fred Hampton Institute, platforming the Zionist Chow Collective, who shill for Zionist China all day long? This is craziness. The Chow Collective is Zionist. The Chow Collective is a liberal Zionist organization. Bismillah. Now, what does the Leslie Chow Collective, like how I did that, Leslie Chow, like from The Hangover? This is Leslie Chow's collective. Why is Leslie Chow's collective? So, look at this. This is by Zionist Chinaman Charles Chu. The Gates of the Great Continent, Palestine, China, and the War for Humanity's Future. It's from March 7, 2024. Again, the Chow Collective, they shill for Zionist China. What are you doing here, Leslie Chow Collective? And they try to say, oh, China's still friend with Palestine. No, you're not. You're the second largest trading partner of the Zionist entity. And let's talk about Tiananmen Square, because we'll do that. Because China is one of the most opportunistic countries that there is. Especially since 1992, and probably since even before that. So here's what Chinaman from the Leslie Chow Collective. What the fudge is his name? Charles Shu. Here's what the Chinaman says. So, in the wake of Black September, this Black September uprising ended in catastrophe with PLO forces thoroughly routed and expelled from all their bases in Jordan. Afterwards, China markedly dialed down its sponsorship for such insurrectionary activity and turned towards state building, rebuilding state-to-state relationships with Arab governments. So, again, shilling for Zionist China and making excuses for Zionist China, right? This proceeded in tandem with its budding approachment with the United States, and its 1971 entry into the UN carried atop a wave of support from Arab states and, interestingly, the Zionist entity, right? Nonetheless, China remained Palestine's most steadfast ally among great powers. What are we, like, come on, bro, quit shilling for Zionist China, dickhead. And this is why I don't trust China. This is why I don't trust China. Because the Chinese are dirty. The Chinese are fucking dirty, man. They'll do you dirty. So get this. And this is by Shireen Akram Boshar. Check it. In 2020, China became the Zionist entity's second largest trading partner globally and its largest in Asia. Recently, Chinese Zionist trade hit a record of $20 billion per year. Chinese and Indian companies have privatized Haifa's port, which Netanyahu allowed against the wishes of the U.S. China's Belt and Road Initiative, begun in 2013, encouraged more Chinese companies to invest in occupied Palestine or set up research and development centers in occupied Palestine. In 2014, Tel Aviv University and Tsinghua University of Beijing set up a $300 million research center. In 2015, Peking University and Tel Aviv University signed a memorandum of understanding to establish a joint research institute. That same year, Shantou University and the Zionist entity Tachyon Institute of Technology established the Guangdong Tachyon Institute of Technology. As Chinese activists in solidarity with Palestine explained, these collaborations are some examples of Chinese university students engaging with Zionist institutions as if they were normal, without recognizing that Zionist universities are complicit with the ongoing genocide, occupation, and oppression of Palestinian people. Some activists have outlined the collaborations between the Zionist entity and China on surveillance technology. In particular, Chinese state company Hikvision is complicit in policing and surveillance in Palestine, China, and even the USA. The Zionist entity uses Hikvision technology to surveil Palestinians in the occupied West Bank, logging the information in a database monitoring Palestinians in the West Bank specifically. Hikvision also provides technology to surveil and police the Uyghur Muslim population in the Xinjiang region of China. And Hikvision cameras are used in numerous other countries, including the US, by the NYPD, among others, despite federal bans of the technology in the US. As Friedman pointed out, China is interested in playing a larger role in West Asia. It has been working to increasingly insert itself in the region following the Abraham Accords, and has maneuvered to take advantage of the Zionist entity's genocide in Gaza to increase its influence. So again, the Chinaman normalizes the Zionist entity. And even Charles Shu, the China bender, who talks about how the Chinese had Zionist weaponry in Tiananmen Square, now shills for Zionist China. So again, the Leslie Chow Collective, which is liberal Zionist, and which is a bunch of China benders, so the Leslie Chow Collective, aka the Zionist China benders, why are they being featured by the Fred Hampton Institute when China, since 2020, China's the second largest trading partner of the Zionist entity? But the Chinamen at the Chow Collective, the Chinamen at the Chow Collective won't even mention that. The Chinamen over there won't even fucking mention that the Zionist entity is the second largest trading partner of China globally. globally after the United States. There was literally in the Leslie Chow Collective's article, literally no mention of Zionist China's Zionist normalization. So check it out. In 2020, China became the Zionist entity's second largest trading partner globally and its largest in Asia. Recently, Chinese Zionist trade hit a record of $20 million per year. Chinese and Indian companies have privatized the Zionist entity's Haifa port, which Netanyahu allowed against the wishes of the U.S. China's Belt and Road Initiative, begun in 2013, encouraged more Chinese companies to invest in the Zionist entity or set up research and development centers in the Zionist entity in occupied Palestine. In 2014, Tel Aviv University and Tsinghua University Beijing set up a $300 million research center. In 2015, Peking University and Tel Aviv University signed a memorandum of understanding to establish a joint research institute. That same year, Shantou University and the Zionist entity's Tekion Institute of Technology established the Guangdong Tekion Institute of Technology. As Chinese activists in solidarity with Palestine explained, these collaborations are some of Chinese university students engaging with Zionist institutions as if they were normal, without recognizing that Zionist universities are complicit in the ongoing genocide, occupation, and oppression of Palestinian people. So, what are you doing? And then about the Fatah and Hamas normalization thing that was largely symbolic. So, in July 2024, China brought various Palestinian factions together in Beijing to move towards national unity and to hash out differences between Fatah and Hamas. While it may have been largely symbolic, the event was part of China's attempt to increase its status and role in the region. Many have praised China for facilitating this convening, but little has come as a result of it. Even before October 7, China established a strategic partnership with the PA and its president Mahmoud Abbas, with whom it had been nurturing a relationship for years. The PA is also widely criticized by Palestinian left and the others across Palestinian society for its security coordination and collaboration with the Zionist entity. China's currying of favor with the PA also points to its goal of increasing its influence in the region rather than a sincere desire for justice for Palestinians. Again, so China's a bunch of Zionist collaborators. The Leslie Chow Collective is Zionist, and they're China benders. So why is the Fred Hampton Institute platforming the Leslie Chow Collective, the liberal Zionist Leslie Chow Collective? Fred Hampton Institute is a Zionist institution, and it must be abolished. They're not actually revolutionary. They platform liberal Zionists, and they must be abolished. Okay? So check it. China's position on Palestine is in many ways representative of the BRICS organization and member countries representing Brazil, the bleach blonde bozos of Brazil, and yes, I'm talking about Charles Oliveira. The Ruskies that like brewskis, Russia, the cringy Slavic part, the Pajits in India, Zionist China, the settlers in South Africa, Iran, aka the Pavlovist Zionists, Egypt, and the UAE and other states, claims to represent an alternative possibility, a bulwark against the U.S., and a defense of countries throughout the global south. However, as in the case of China, BRICS plus countries often rhetorically support Palestinians and champion this two-state solution, while simultaneously furthering their investments and collaborations with the Zionist entity. This is most obvious in the case of India, the fifth largest trading partner of the Zionist entity globally, which has actively supported the Zionist entity in its genocide on Gaza with arms sales and increased its partnership with Zionist universities complicit in the genocide. After decades of nurturing close ties with the Zionist entity going back to the 1980s and 1990s and championing similarly right-wing violent Islamophobia. Russia, too, has strong economic connections with the Zionist entity and has continued to provide coal to the Zionist entity throughout the duration of the genocide. Brazil and even South Africa, the country that brought the Zionist entity to justice, have refused to stop their coal and oil sales to the Zionist entity. To be clear, this approach is contrary to that advocated by the BDS movement. By cooperating with the Zionist entity rather than isolating it amid a genocide, these states and their state-backed corporations and tech companies are an obstacle to Palestinian liberation rather than part of the solution. So, again, the Fred Hampton Collective, Zionist organization. Fred Hampton Institute's a Zionist organization. Now, what do they say nowadays? This is by Kenny Orphan. And it's good that he's opposing and exposing Zionist Donald Trump. It's good that he's outing Donald Trump and the U.S. empire and U.S. settler colonialism. And it's good that Yohanna Haddad is exposing the liberal Zionists at the DSA and says things like the DSA says things that I agree with, including the DSA simply believes that Waltz is a solid choice and the Democrats have caved to leftist activists in choosing him. A closer look at Waltz, the fat-ass German, reveals that he's no progressive. He's best of wolves in sheep's clothing. Although much of his worst escapades have been so brazen that Waltz is really a wolf in wolf's clothing. For example, he regularly speaks before Minnesota Zionist lobby. The Jewish Community Relations Council has applauded the governor's Zionist record. Days after October 7th, Waltz addressed the council in solidarity with the Zionist entity against Palestinian resistance by Hamas. In his speech, Waltz made it clear that he firmly stands with the Zionist entity and the settler colonialism they're doing. That cause, recall, is apartheid and ethnic cleansing and settler colonialism against indigenous Palestinians. That's not all. When Palestinian constituents who lost family members in Gaza wanted to meet with Waltz, he refused. The Minnesota governor originally agreed to the meeting under the belief that Palestinians would merely share their stories. When they informed Waltz of their intention to discuss divestment and other material policy, he ordered his staff to cancel. He said, "Do not redeem," right? At a conference of the extremist Zionist American AIPAC, Waltz called the Zionist entity our truest and closest ally. He touted the Zionist entity's supposed commitment to values and personal freedoms and liberties. As a federal congressman, Waltz voted to condemn a UN resolution declaring the Zionist entity's West Bank settlements illegal. Again, international law serves Zionism, as I've exposed in previous videos. But again, DSA is a bunch of Zionist pajeets. But why is Yohanna Haddad shilling for that clown with earrings who is a Zionist and a Nazi, Carlos Garrido? That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense why she's shilling for, or he's shilling, sorry, brother. He's shilling for Carlos Garrido. That doesn't make sense. And why are they shilling? Oh, good. They're kind of sort of exposing Cornel West. But all in all, the Fred Hampton Institute's a clown show, and they're not to be trusted because they platform Zionists. And they platform China benders who are also Zionists. So there you go.